Welcome, viewers. I'm going to talk to you about something very important today. When you hear this, usually your mind says, I'm not going to college today, or I'm not going to go for the presentation at all. So, what happens? Anybody tells you to speak, you invariably put your hands and you don't do your presentations. It's quite dangerous, right? But I'm going to give you 5 tips. So, to start off with, let me start off with a small story. There was a small little boy who was my friend's son, and he was absolutely naughty and lazy. But what happens was he went to school on a Monday morning. But when he was going to school, he asked his mother that he wanted a huge big pot. So he went to school with the pot, and obviously the mother was anxious just to know what happened after that. He was supposed to have been preparing and presenting on something on Monday morning, which he very coolly didn't speak about. So all he did was he took this big pot to school and he started with adding a lot of water into it till the brim of the pot, and he left it on top of the teacher's table. So when the presentation started off, he came up and he said he is going to introduce the presentation. So he came up on stage and he said, today we, the team so and so, is going to do a presentation. These are my friends A, B, C, D, E, and I am so and so. And then he said, today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most important concepts that I have ever seen, which was a disaster in the world. And what he did was he pulled the teacher's table up, which actually jerked the pot, and the entire water splashed off across the table. And then he comes up with this beautiful concept saying, and this is how tsunami was formed. Now my friends will explain to you. Just see how cunning and how smart he was, because his introduction to his speech was absolutely beautiful. So the first part of any speech should be an introduction. The introduction should be a spellbound introduction, because it should give a brief of the entire topic, yet it should create a spark in the mind of the person who's listening to it. So once you've covered the introduction, the second part is the feed in. The feed in basically is, hey, how many of you were there when tsunami was there? So probably there is X, Y, Z standing in front of you who will say, okay, yes, I was there. So what happens? You will get their ideas. How did you feel then? Were you in the midst of it? Were you somewhere nearby? Was the news about it? So what happens is a lot of feeling which comes in, which gives you a base of understanding how many of your participants know what is being spoken. And then you come to the third point, which is basically the subject. And how does the subject happen? The subject happens very, very simple. All what you know, the facts and figures which you have with you, comes into this part, which is the subject, which is the main part of the body. So you start with the introduction, you come to the feed in, you come to the subject, and then after you have covered the entire subject, what you are going to do now is you're going to go back down into the next segment, which is called the feedback. So now you know, okay, X said something about tsunami in the feed in, Y said something about it in the feed in, then you spoke about the subject. You can always come back to X and ask, do you agree with what I said? Do you now have a different perspective of what you said? And that is called the feedback in any presentation which you have. So you started with an introduction, which is a third factor. You came to the feed in, where you try to understand everything what everyone amongst you knows, and then you come to the subject, and then you come to the feedback, which is basically nothing but asking them what did they understand out of the entire process which you have spoken here, and does this and this match. And when you come to a conclusion, you should come to a conclusion again like the introduction, a very strong one, because when you do a strong conclusion, your conclusion becomes a takeaway for the person who's sitting in front of you. Now, for a topic like tsunami, it doesn't matter. But if it's a topic of general appeal, if it's a topic of general call for action, or something like that, then I think you should really look at the conclusion being absolutely strong. So If you look at a presentation, if it flows upwards and then downwards, it is a beautiful way in which you could present. I hope this video helps you, and I hope this video takes you a long way. All the very best, and hope your presentations do good.